Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to teach you how to factor by grouping. So here we have this algebraic equation here, 6xy plus 3x minus 8y minus 4. So the first thing that we are going to do when we look at something like this is we are going to identify what variables we have. So we have two different variables. We have our x, that I'm going to underline here in green, and then we have our y, which I'm going to underline here in this blue. So we have two different variables here, x and y. Now we also want to take a look at our numbers. So we have a 6, we have a 3, we have an 8, and we have a 4. What we're going to be doing is we are going to put these into two different groups based on a couple of things. Number one, we want to look at their variable. We want to group them by a common variable. And then we are also going to look at the numbers in front. So I'm going to take a look at my variables first. I have an instance where I have an x and a y, and I also have an instance where I have one x and then one instance where I have one y. So, I could try to group these. I could try grouping the 6x and the y. Like, I'll just do it over here. Let's do 6xy. I'm putting this one aside. And I can try to put my negative 8y next to it, right? And then I could try to group my positive 3x and my negative 4 together. So just by looking at the variables, I feel like this could make sense, right? When we're trying to factor out a common factor. In this case here, we would factor out the y, and then we would be left with the x, right? Similar to here. But I also need to look at my numbers in front. And if I look here, I have a 3, which I can't factor anymore, and I have a 4, which can factor into 2 times 2, which are not common to 3. So that means that I cannot group these two like this, right? So I am going to have to go ahead and group the 6xy with my 3x. And then I'm going to group my negative 8y with my negative 4. So here I have a common factor with my x, but I also have a common factor if I look at my numbers. If I break my 6 up into its factors, I have 2 and 3, then my common factor would be 3 in the front. So I can then use my 3 and my x to factor this particular group. Now when it comes to this next group, I have a negative 8y and a negative 4. The 4 doesn't have any variable to it, so I can't factor out this y. So this y is just going to kind of stay there. What I can do is I can factor out this guy right here, this 8. If I were to break 8 up, I would get 2 and 4. And guess what we have? We have a common factor right here. Now what's even more common is that I can factor out this negative number as well. So I can include that negative number when I factor it out. So let's take a look at what this actually gives us. All right, to make some space, I'm just going to write out my common factors. So my first group, I'm going to just kind of box it out with this color here. So my first group, I have a common factor of 3 and x. And then my second group, which is this one right here, I have a common factor of negative 4. So now I'm just going to make some space here so that we can actually do some divisions and some factoring here. So I'm going to rewrite this 6xy plus 3x minus 8y minus 4. I'm going to look at my first group here. I'm going to divide the first 2 by my 3x. And I'm going to divide my last 2 by this negative 4, right? So here, 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. X to the power of 1 divided by x to the power of 1 means that I get x to the power of 0, which means that I get 1, right? Anything to the power of 0 is 1. So I'm just left with 2. The x's make it 1. And then I have a y. Then I also have 3x divided by 3x, right? So 3 divided by 3 gives me 1. And I have this x to the power of 1 divided by x to the power of 1 is just going to give us 1. So I'm left with 2y plus 1. I'm going to put these in brackets, and I'm going to put my common factor, which is 3x, on the outside. There we go. Now let's take a look at this one here. Now when you're factoring by grouping, you want to make sure that your brackets, because you're going to have 2 brackets, you want to make sure that both brackets have the exact same thing inside of it. So here we are looking for 2y plus 1. And then we're trying to figure out what this multiplier is on the outside. So let's just double check that this factor will actually give us 2y plus 1. So we have negative 8 divided by negative 4 will give us positive 2. And we have the y still there. So that makes sense. And then we have negative 4 divided by negative 4, which gives us positive 1. So this seems to match up. I'm going to take this last common factor, and I'm going to put it on the outside of this bracket here. Now I have one more step to do. I am going to take my 2 common factors, right, my 3x and my negative 4, and I'm going to put them in a set of brackets. And then I'm going to make another set of brackets, and I'm going to put this common bracket right here. So 2y plus 1. And this is the final form of my factoring.